a common misperception about creativity. People say it's like a talent. You've either got it or you don't have it. That is one of the biggest lies, and as creative professionals, it's imperative for you to understand that creativity is just like a muscle. If you want to develop your physical muscles, you exercise them, push them a little bit beyond their comfort zone, and then they heal. Those muscles get little micro tears when you exercise and lift weights, and then those heal and make it stronger. So the next time you encounter that stress level, it's fine, it doesn't damage it. Creativity is similar to that. The more you practice it, stronger and better you get at being creative. So this workshop is all about developing your creativity and exercises you can do to increase your creativity and innovation. And I hope you'll participate. It's a very participatory... Yeah, just 1 second. I don't have my speaker notes showing up on here. It's bizarre. I apologize. I had it all set up. There we go. Okay, so nope, now you guys see my notes. Darn. Can you help me with that? I'm so sorry. Thank you. Okay, so while he's helping me with that, I just wanted to compare creativity to something that you may learn, like a new talent. For example, juggling, learning an instrument. You don't have a child sit down at the piano and expect them to be able to play Beethoven their first time. It's baby steps, and they get better, they learn basics. Thank you so much. I'll buy you dinner. And so, another thing I like to compare it to, I run an art studio, so I teach a lot of art classes. We compare it to walking. When a student gets very frustrated, or in a creative writing class, you get frustrated and you say, well, think about a baby. When they learned how to walk, there was a lot of trial and error, a lot of falling down, a lot of tears. But think about walking now. For most of us, you don't even think about it. It's easy, and you can actually do it in ways that you couldn't when you were younger. You can skip and dance and jump, and creativity is like that. The more you practice, the more you'll be able to build. It'll be easier, it will come naturally to you. I'm going to change my schedule just a little bit in lieu of our technical difficulties. We're going to skip ahead to a part I was going to say for later. And I'm going to have you look at the paper I passed out that has circles on it. This is one of the best creativity warm-ups. It's actually referred to in a TED Talk about creativity and play. It's a fabulous TED Talk. I don't have the author memorized, so I'll show that later. If you did not get one, it's because I passed them all out to whoever was here first, so just turn to a blank page in your notebook or in your program. You're going to draw something like a grid of about 30 circles, maybe 1 inch in diameter. Just really quickly, they don't need to be perfect circles, just so you have the basic idea, the shape of them. So this warm-up, it's useful whether you're an artist or a writer or a filmmaker. It's useful in every creative profession, so please don't just get a mental block because it's drawing. Your drawing skill is not the point here. What we'd like you to do is look at those 30 circles. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. And I'd like you to turn those circles into as many different objects as you can that could fit that shape. Here's the rule though, you can't do a whole bunch of the same category. For example, you can't do a soccer ball, a basketball, a volleyball, etc. Only do one sports ball. Only do one flower. Don't do a daisy and carnation and all of that. You're trying to think of different categories. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes right now, just have it be silent. Don't worry about the quality of your drawing. The point is to just recognize what the object is intended to be, because this is not an art exercise, it's a creativity exercise. So with that, go ahead and start sketching out and just see how many you can come up with. Try to let the ideas flow. Do not self-edit. That's what we're trying to get rid of. That natural inclination. Say, this idea isn't good enough. Just get them all out as quickly as you can. If there's something I'd like to get across to everybody in this presentation, keep drawing while I talk, by the way, is I just want you to come with or take away the concept that every single individual is creative. Kids are born with a natural creativity. They're naturally geniuses. And it's our social environment that impedes that in large part. It's that fear of criticism, that fear of failure. And what we would like you to do is overcome those worries and be able to tap into your creativity. As adults, we've grown, we've kind of been trained into this natural self-editing, that these are bad ideas. One of the important strategies to being more creative is to acknowledge all the ideas, get them all out, and then later we'll go back and decide which ones are good and which ones are bad. And have no fear of embarrassment. That's really critical. Being creative naturally requires a certain amount of risk-taking. While you continue to draw, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about creativity and that magic thing we call the zone. Hopefully, if you're a creative professional, you've worked in the zone before. I love this quote by Albert Einstein. He says, "That is the way to learn the most. When you're doing something with such enjoyment that you don't notice that time passes. I'm sometimes so wrapped up in my work that I forget about my noon meal." And don't we all just love that magical experience, this adrenaline rush, this creative high? And what I want to help you learn today is a little bit how to get into the zone quicker and stay in it longer to maximize your productivity in your creative work. Something that's important to recognize is that love and creativity are very intertwined. If you don't really care about your project, it's going to be very difficult to be at your creative best. And the zone is this magical marriage when you have three ingredients: investment, intention, and excitement. I'm going to talk about those each just a little bit. You may continue to draw if you want to, or if you want to take notes, you can go ahead and do that as well. I don't mind sending my speaker notes to people if you want to give me your email addresses. I won't sell them or anything. I just know when I attend these, there's so much information I can't write it all down. So I'm happy to share my speaker notes with those who would like to come up after the panel or presentation. So let's talk about these three ingredients. We have investment, intention, and excitement. Investment is what you're willing to sacrifice for your project. That can be time, that can be money, that can be training, schooling, it can be other hobbies. You can sacrifice a lot for your project. This is the hard work element. Excitement is the emotional drive behind your creative work. And this is what makes your investment feel invigorating. It's very, very important. Intention is your reward or the goal that's motivating you, whether that's a paycheck, whether that's a vision of a great book, a great piece of art, a great movie, whatever the goal is, that makes your investment feel worth it. Now, if you only have one of these elements, your creative work isn't going to go anywhere. For example, you can be very, very excited about a project, but if you don't invest in training and time, you don't have the ability, and your project's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to stay a great idea. And unfortunately, I think a lot of us as creative professionals have all these great ideas that we don't have time to, and so they never become reality. If you invest in training and resources but have no goal in sight or excitement, then productivity will dwindle. And so our excitement and intention are very, very important. You can't have just investment. And if you have great intention, great goals, but you're not excited about the project and you didn't invest in time, then you have no momentum. It's not going to go anywhere. And so these are all really important to understand in getting to our creative zone. Here's a graph that I absolutely love that kind of illustrates this concept. We have our excitement, our investment, our intention. And if you have two of these things, then you can make some progress. For example, if you have excitement and intention, I'll read it for those of you who are far in the back. You're interested, inspired, or excited about the purpose and meaning behind the project, but you're not really investing tangibly in it. You're just mostly excited about the idea. Whereas if you have excitement and investment, you're excited about the project and have put time and energy into accomplishment, but your momentum from the investment into the project and your momentum from the investment into the project and excitement are fueling the progress. You can make some progress here, but it's not going to be that magic zone. If you have investment and intention, you've put in time and energy, but you're no longer excited about that. I think a lot of professional creative minds have fallen into that, where you have a deadline, you have a commission or something, you're not really loving it, but you've got to power through it. You can get your work done, but it's not really fun. And so the zone is where we have this magical marriage of all three. So how do we make creativity part of our daily life and start to work out those muscles? I have 15 suggestions that you can incorporate in your daily life in little chunks of time, because time is money, right? And you can get started on some of those today in our presentation. One thing I want to point out before we get going, though, is to not underestimate the power of 10-minute blocks. A lot of us think, I need a whole hour to really get into my project, get into that zone, and start making progress. Well, you have 10-minute blocks here and there. We often don't have a huge chunk of time. And so taking advantage of those 10-minute blocks can add up a lot over time. So if you're an author, take your laptop with you to the doctor's office while you're in the waiting room, work on your novel. Or if you're an artist, bring your sketchbook along, work on concept ideas for that cover art or that illustration you're working on. Always have a sketchbook or a laptop with you and take advantage of all those moments when you're waiting for kids at piano lessons or you're in the car lane. Well, don't drive, but if you're parked and waiting for someone, take advantage of that. And the more often you practice these small times of creativity, the quicker your brain will be able to jump into creative mode when you want it to. Now, the first thing I always teach people is don't stress about perfection. This is one of the biggest limiting factors to our creative efforts. We want a perfect product, and that's not going to happen. It is a messy, messy project. And it makes it harder to create anything at all when you feel inhibited. So it's okay to start with a goal of quantity over quality when you're starting in the early stages. Then you can go back and refine these ideas, find out which ones were good, and start developing them. And it's really important to remember that everyone is creative to a certain degree. So don't be self-condemning. Don't let that negative voice inhibit your ideas. One of the best ways to jumpstart your creativity is to have an environment just for your creative work. If you're an author, that can be a writing desk or a couch or a nook. It can be a room. For artists, it could be a studio or just a corner of a room. Whatever it is, set aside a specific space that's your workspace, even if it's just a portion of the kitchen table. There are some things you can do with that space to help make it more productive. Natural light has been shown to increase our productivity and our focus. So if you have access to natural light, that's an important element. Artificial light also works well if you get full spectrum light. Surround yourself with things that inspire you. That can be a goal board, inspiration boards. You can have works in progress within easy reach, so you can just jump from one project to the next really quickly, so you can maximize your time while you're in this space. And another important thing is to use this space only when you're creating. Well, what this does is it trains your brain to get into the creative zone as soon as you enter this space. So over time, you're training yourself to flip that creative switch just by getting into your workspace. And that can jumpstart your productivity. Another really important thing is to set aside regular time to create. Whether for some people that's after the kids are in bed and the house is quiet. For some people that's early in the morning before the family's up. Whatever the time is that works well for you, identify what that is and work with it. Unfortunately for me, my most creative times are usually in the middle of the night. My kids are all asleep, I don't have any questions, there are people needing help with anything, and so I'll wake up often at 2 a.m. and then I can take advantage of that time. Instead of laying in bed with insomnia, wishing I was asleep, I've learned to adapt and just get up, put in a couple hours of work, and then take a nap the next day, and it's okay. It's not the end of the world. So whatever your time is that's productive, identify that, and then harness that. Okay, this is our 30 circles game that I had you start earlier. This was the exercise that comes from the researcher Bob McKim, and it's featured in Tim Brown's TED Talk, Creativity and Play. I highly recommend that TED Talk, it's really amazing. And this is a mental warm-up that he's even done in office spaces. It's not just for artists and writers. This helps get your brain working. Okay, so most people have a hard time getting to 30 circles. Raise your hand if you got 5 filled in. Okay, keep your hand up if you got more than 10. Hands stay up if you got more than 15. Awesome. 20. That is amazing. Give yourself a pat on the back. That's great. So for some people, this is a very difficult exercise to do for the first time. But it's okay. The more often you do these exercises, the more creative you will be. And you'll find this flowing over into the areas where you're wanting to be creative, whether that's writing, game design, whatever. And a fun thing to do, once you've gotten comfortable with something like circles, circles are the easiest, so I always start with that. Next time, do triangles. The time after that, do squares. The time after that, switch it up for hexagons. And when you're feeling really comfortable with this level of creativity, Then you start changing it with silhouettes of things, like the silhouette of a magnifying glass. How many items can you turn that into? The silhouette of an umbrella was the most challenging one I had in an art class I had. And it was fascinating. We had dragons and things, and we had wonderful things coming out of this creativity exercise. So it's fun. Okay, let's moving your body. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that exercise is good for you, but it really helps your creativity. And a lot of top companies like Google, Apple, they have walking executive meetings. Some of you may have heard of it. Well, they'll walk while they're having their meetings because ideas flow when your large muscle groups are moving. And so if you're going to be, let's say you're an author, go for a walk, take along your smartphone, record the ideas, just talk to yourself. You're going to look a little bit crazy to bypassers, but it's okay. Record the ideas you have as you're walking, and you can go back and pick out which ones are worth keeping and develop those. Or if you're working on a cover, whatever it is that you're working on, record what you're thinking about as you're walking. And the nice thing as well is that after you've engaged your large muscle groups, that improves your focus for the next several hours afterwards. So when you come back and sit down, you're going to experience the benefit of that increased neural activity for quite a while. Okay, flash fiction. This is not just for authors. No matter your creative profession, flash fiction can help your creativity. For those of you who are not authors and do not know, flash fiction is very short stories, usually 1,000 words or less. It's often based on a prompt. There are lots of prompts you can find online. There are great flash fiction groups. And so it doesn't matter how well or badly you write, try it. It's a short enough writing assignment that everyone can finish it. And there are communities online where you can get help as well, get some feedback, and there's no pressure. You don't have to share this. If it's horrible, so what? Leave it in your files, and don't ever throw it away though, just for the record. With the creative professions, never throw away any of your ideas, because you might think it's horrible right now. You might go back to it later and see some value in it that you want to use. For example, Brett Hellquist's keynote speech today. Raise your hand if you were at that fabulous presentation. His cover for Chasing Vermeer was one of his first ideas that he thought was bad and passed up. Later he went back to it, and that ended up being incorporated in his final design. So don't ever throw away any of your brainstorming. Just keep it in an ugly sketchbook that you hide if you don't want people to see it, and that's fine. So you don't have to share your flash fiction, just get those creative juices going. One thing that I love, in some of the creativity workshops I've done, will say, give me 3 nouns. So we'll actually just do it right now. Raise your hand, give me a noun that could fit on a person's body, like in a pocket. So raise a hand, we'll call somebody, yes?
Pencil.
A pencil, okay, something totally random. I want more random than that, in the back.
A ring.
A ring, okay, and?
Button.
A button?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a pencil, a ring, and a button. Then I would give them the assignment, brainstorm a character that has these in their pocket. Why do they have these in their pocket? What's the story behind these things? And how do they tell you something about the character? Usually we get more crazy objects like that, like we might have stale popcorn, or, you can just pick any random nouns and build a story around it. One of my favorites was a workshop where they had a character who always had packets of Tabasco sauce in their pocket. And it was somebody who was an immigrant from another country. They decided this was their comfort, their connection to home was being able to put Tabasco sauce on it wasn't Tabasco sauce, because that's American, but some sort of, hot sauce. And so it was this interesting idea. All of a sudden our character had this interesting dimension. This was his comfort item. So do you see how that could be kind of a fun exercise? Okay, doodling and zentangling. Those are 2 very different things, but we're going to talk about both of them. Doodling can actually enhance your recall, especially if you're listening to a lecture. So if you're doodling during this presentation, that's fabulous. It means you're paying very good attention. And it activates unique neurological pathways. So that can help you have new insights and cognitive breakthroughs. And some companies even encourage doodling on their executive desks. You'll go in and you'll see doodling pads or Zentangle pads that they do, like a doodle a day or a Zentangle a day, and you rip it off, throw it away. It's a very useful tool. Sonny Brown, the author of The Doodle Revolution, notes that some of the greatest thinkers, such as Henry Ford and Steve Jobs, use doodling on their job site to jumpstart their creativity. So if you're an inventor, anything like that, It's fabulous. Now Zentangle is a little bit different than doodling. This picture is a picture of a Zentangle, and it's very structured doodling. It's not aimless. And it has become an international phenomenon in the last few years. It's got some very powerful mental health benefits. It reduces stress. It increases focus. It's actually used in mental health therapy. Art therapy uses Zentangling, and it's often used in motivational training as well. You can buy Zentangle books everywhere online. And it's more structured than doodling. You can see we have these repeating patterns, these very simple shapes that are just being repeated over and over again. And what happens when you do that is it's like yoga, but without using your large muscles. It's just yoga for the brain. It's repetitive, it's calming, and it really helps you be focused for the next few hours. And these might look a little bit complex, but really it's very simple shapes that are just being repeated over and over again. So if you buy a Zentangle book, it will show you tutorials how to Zentangle, and it's really great for helping you be more creative. Okay, free thinking and writing. In my coaching experience, we called these Fluency Races, and we're going to do one together on the whiteboard, but I'm going to explain it first. Free association exercises come from writing down everything you can think of about a topic without worrying about revising and self-editing. Remember, we go back and do that later. We go back and consider which ones are worth keeping. So I'm going to demonstrate one of the easy free association exercises I do in my workshops. And what I'd like you to do actually is participate with this. I'll explain, and then we're going to have you do one on your paper in just a moment. Can everybody see if I stand here and right here? Am I blocking it for you guys? Okay, we're going to take a word. I'll try to write large enough for everyone. Rock. Now I want you to call out things you can think of that can have anything to do with rock. For example, we could say igneous, right? Igneous rock is a type of rock. And I'm horrible at spelling, and I apologize in advance to all of the wonderful authors. You don't have to raise a hand, just call it out.
Kansas!
Dwayne Johnson. Oh, I love that. Usually people get to that much later in the fluency race. So Dwayne Johnson. Moab, okay. Perfect.
Jade, phosphorite.
Okay, keep shouting them out. I'm just going to write down some of the ones I hear, so if I don't write yours, don't take
Journey. Star.
Journey, rock star, very good.
Steven Universe.
Steven Universe, I'm just going to put SU. Okay, any others?
Obsidian.
Obsidian, okay, a type of rock, great.
Paper, scissors.
Oh, no one's done that one before. Out of all the workshops I've done, you haven't had rock, paper, scissors. Oh, that's great.
Foundation.
Foundation, fabulous.
Hudson.
Hudson, rock? Rock Hudson, sorry. Hudson, comma, rock.
Peter.
Peter, ooh, the rock from the Bible. Awesome. This is fun. This is a much more creative group than usually I work with. Candy Beach, okay. And a Plymouth, I heard Plymouth.
Oh, good.
Baby.
Rocket Baby. This is like really kind of a wobbly whiteboard.
Prudential Insurance.
Sylvester Stallone. Okay, we'll just call these out instead of writing them all. There's also Pop Rock Candy, right? So can you kind of see how this works? You're thinking of anything that has anything to do with this topic. And so now what I'd like you to do is fold your paper in half so the circles are on the inside of the fold. I want you to use the blank back, but only half of it, because we're saving the other half for a different activity. I'm going to give you a new word in just a couple minutes to write down everything you can think of that has to do with that word, and then we'll share some of them with the group briefly, okay? Is everyone ready? Well, if you're not ready, I apologize, we don't have time to wait. Usually I do a 6-hour workshop, and I've got 45 minutes today. So, the word I'd like you to work with is star. Start writing everything you can think of that has to do with star. And kind of like our 30 circles game, once you've got one, such as our igneous rock, don't worry about writing down everything within that category. Just get one to represent the category and move on. Remember, no self-editing is allowed in this phase of your free association exercise. Just write down all the ideas. There are no bad ideas at this type of brainstorming. Okay, let's bring our attention back up here. Instead of having people yell out at this space, I'm going to do hands. I'll pick people. I would like you to share your very best ideas for from your list, and we're just going to talk about them a little bit. Do we have any volunteers? Okay, here.
Ninja star.
A ninja star, very good. Right back here.
I said jar, and at first I didn't want to write it down, and I was like,
Jar rhymes with star. You can see the association. Fabulous. Right here.
I thought of anime actually because there's one that has a person who uses constellations as magic.
Fabulous. Great. So constellations being used as magic, for those of you who couldn't hear, in the back, right there.
Navigation.
Navigation with the stars. That one has never come up in any of my workshops. Kudos. Right here.
Starfish.
Starfish. Very good. Let's pick this person down here on the end.
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan. Fabulous. Here.
Christmas?
Christmas. The Christmas star in blue.
Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon. Fabulous. How about in the very back, somebody in a green shirt with dogs or llamas?
Llamas.
Oh,
I nailed it! I thought of a pentagram and somebody saying,
Okay. It's perfect. Pentagrams. Very good. Let's do right here with the glasses.
wish.
A wish upon a star. Fabulous. This little boy in the green shirt. I love how everybody checks their shirt. Like, is she talking about me?
Dizzy.
What's that?
Dizzy.
Disney?
Dizzy.
Dizzy. Okay, seeing stars. Like you're dizzy in the back corner.
Sheriff.
Yeah, I have to yell really loud.
Sharon.
Fabulous. Great. Right here in the blue.
Time Before Time. Tree stars.
Okay, tree stars. Right here with the black jacket.
Military rank.
Military rank. Yes.
I thought of, like her, she thought of an anime. I thought of a book called Dog's Body. It's based off of the dog star.
Okay, the dog star in this orange shirt. We're just going to take a couple more.
I was thinking about Draco and Sirius.
Draco and Sirius. Very good. Right here with the blue hair.
Okay. The Snitches. You want to start on ours?
Oh, very good. The Sneetches in the very back.
Jewish star.
The Jewish star. That's fabulous. Right here.
Van Gogh.
Say it again.
Vincent Van Gogh.
Vincent Van Gogh, Starry Starry Night usually shows up. Thank you for mentioning it because that's my favorite as an artist. We'll take one last one, maybe right here in the middle with the glasses.
Hollywood.
Hollywood stars. Fabulous. So you see all these wonderful creative ideas we have? This is the funnest group I've ever taught. You guys are really creative. And I've taught to author groups before, but this is very fun. Okay, we're going to move on. So learning something new. Why would you want to do this if you're busy with your current profession? Well, you're developing new neural pathways in your brain when you learn something new. And that increases the overall ability of your brain to be creative. So it can be anything, but learn something especially outside of your comfort zone. When you get outside of your comfort zone, you really experience growth. Sometimes it's a little bit painful, but that's okay. That's really important to push yourself outside of that comfort zone. Some of the ways you can learn something new are community classes. There are a lot of adult education classes that are beginner level and lots of different fun things. You can try painting, pottery, woodworking, a new language, an instrument, cooking. I mean, the world is the limit there. But do something new. Okay, a sketchbook. This is also for non-artists, just like how flash fiction was for non-authors. Sketching is a great way to make constructive use of time that might otherwise be wasted. We talked about using those 10-minute blocks of time. A lot of times people plug into their phone, right? When you're waiting, when you have downtime, pull out a sketchbook instead. Invest in just a small pocket-sized one. You can either write down ideas if you're a writer. You can work on sketching if you're an artist. Or if you're a writer who's learning something new, try sketching in your sketchbook. Who would have thought? And you can draw the things around you. It doesn't have to be something off the top of your head. So you can draw, like if you're at a restaurant doing lunch, it can be the salt and pepper shaker, the crumpled pile of newspaper, whatever. Just try to draw what you can see. And we've talked a little bit how creativity kind of seeps across different activities. And so sketching a few minutes a day can result in a major boost to your workplace creativity. And the more you draw, the better you'll get, whether you consider yourself an artist or not. It's important, don't overanalyze your sketchbook. A sketchbook is never meant to be the final product, so it's going to be somewhat ugly, and that's okay. Just draw it for the enjoyment of the process, not for the end piece. Another really fun thing is instead of thinking about this end goal, like I need to make an amazing cover for this book, for example, think about it a different way. Like instead of trying to paint, let's say, two friends are in a fight and you're trying to think how to show that, instead think how do you feel in that situation? How do you feel when you feel lonely or hurt? And then how could that be communicated visually? Or if you're writing, how can that be communicated through words? Focus, instead of at the end goal of the scene, focus on an element that you can relate to, bring that humanity into your approach. Write down or sketch every idea as soon as it strikes you, just like we did with our fluency race, and then you can weed out the bad ones later. And even if you're not sitting in a moment with your sketchbook open and you have a random idea, whip out that sketchbook, jot down some keywords to remind yourself, and then you can go back and fill it out later. If you don't know what to sketch, we're going to show you a really fun activity. This is called the Scribble Game, and it's my students' favorite in my art studio every week. Flip to the back side of your paper that was not used for the Fluency Race. And this one we're actually going to work with a partner. So we're going to make a friend with the audience today. First, let me demonstrate. If this was my paper here, what I want you to do is draw a line down through the middle and 2 more lines, so you have 6 squares. Okay? These are each going to be an individual workspace. Okay, I just have some random marks. You're going to put some random marks. It doesn't need to match mine. Think of some random marks. You can, if you don't know what to do to be random, you can do the letters of the alphabet or numbers. I've done ones like that. You just write them like here. We've got the number 3, right? But make them in the middle of that space, fairly large, but you still want some space around them. This is a super fun game. My kids love playing it anytime they're bored, which means it happens in church every week. Yes, I have a hand.
Two of those characters, they're the 3 and the thing that's next to it, they both, those 2, they look like Japanese characters.
That's cool. Yeah, Oriental characters are great. Any foreign language, use a letter or a word, and it's fabulous. So any squiggle. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to trade papers in a moment with somebody, so it's not your own squiggles. This is important. And you're going to turn this into a picture of some kind. You're going to look at it and think, how can I incorporate this line into a creation? And you don't have to have them all oriented the same way up. If you turn the paper 90 degrees, you'll find you get new ideas for what that could be. I'm going to show you an example from my studio. We have one of the blank ones, and this is one of my students. He decided to do it all themed sci-fi. So if you are a fairly creative artist, you want to take it to the next level, try to restrict yourself within a theme. Like they all have to be, I don't know, Halloween or Christmas, or they all have to be animals or whatever. And so you can see we've got like some Doctor Who stuff up there, Star Wars. I don't even know what all these are. Robots and things. So I want you to trade papers with the person next to you, behind you, in front of you somewhere, if possible. And I want you to take a couple minutes to just sketch out what these could be. And we're actually only going to do this for 60 or 90 seconds because we still have some things we want to cover. But I just want you to get the concept and get some hands-on practice with it. And you don't have to worry about quality. Just getting the creative idea out is the purpose of this game. What's really fun is doing the same shape over and over again and just doing it at a new orientation, of turning it 90 degrees in each square, and then seeing how you can change that into new things. While you draw, I'm going to continue to talk so we can maximize our time. Toys on your desk is another valuable way to be creative. You're involving your muscles, your body, when you play with things with your hands. And so that kinetic movement is really helpful for encouraging creativity. That can be Legos, Lincoln Logs, Play Play-Doh, origami paper. There are desk sets with like magnets and things. It can be anything where you're physically manipulating it with your hands as opposed to typing on a keyboard or holding a paintbrush or something like that. And that can give us a creative jolt. My favorite one in workshops when I have more time is I bring tinfoil, and I have pieces of tinfoil about 12 inches square, and I hand them out to everybody and I tell them to turn it into something. And tinfoil is really fun. And when you crush it and shape it, you can actually sculpt very complex things with tinfoil. It's very cheap. Everybody has tinfoil at their house. So I encourage you to go home and or go to the office, whichever, and use some tinfoil as a kinetic toy on your desk. And surprisingly, sometimes your creations will be good enough to keep. My kids kept a tinfoil dragon for like 3 years that I wanted to throw away, but they loved it, and he had a whole backstory they made. And he became our mascot for our creativity team. When we went to competition, they would bring this tinfoil dragon with them. So you can continue to draw while I talk. Restricting yourself is a great way to increase productivity. Some of you know Dr. Seuss wrote Green Eggs and Ham after betting that he couldn't produce a story with less than 50 words. And restricting yourself can really help. So there are artists who restrict themselves to a certain tool, like I'm going to paint with only this size brush and see what I can do, or I'm only going to finger paint. Some of you may know Iris Scott, who's a really famous finger paint artist. She's featured in museums all over the world. By restricting herself to painting only with her fingers, she's come up with some very, very fascinating techniques that are very recognizable, and it's her trademark now. So the limiting nature of a task can bring out your more creative side. If you're an author, if you usually write 1,000-word short stories, maybe try doing it under 500 words. And if you're a musician, use only a handful of chords. Or if you're an artist, use only 2 or 3 colors in your design and get a complex composition put together with that. Reconceptualizing the problem. I touched on this a little bit earlier when we talked about starting from the feeling of a scene rather than your end goal of the scene, right? So visualizing it from another angle before you start is one of the very valuable ways to be more creative. This is used especially in businesses, in the just based on the word I wanted to use. But this is the most often used creativity tool in most business settings. And a lot of creative people have a natural ability to reconceptualize their problem before starting a creative task. But it's important to hone that ability. One great example that I have, or a quote from Einstein says, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would start with 55 minutes of thinking about the problem and then 5 minutes thinking about the solution. And it's really useful. Another approach that works is to imagine the intended audience of your next creative project. Ask what inspires them, or what are they sick of hearing about, or what are the problems they face but can't really talk about. Okay, this one's a fun one. Counterfactual thinking is what might have been. It shows an increased creativity for short periods of time. And this is really useful as a story writer to experiment with this. You take events that have already happened and reimagine them with a different outcome, or with a different character, or with a different prop being part of the story. A really silly example of this is in the Big Bang Theory, when one of the main characters makes a game of this. He says, in a world where rhinoceroses are domesticated pets, who wins the Second World War? What a fun thing to think about, right? It sounds ridiculous, but you can come up with some really fun, creative stories, especially writing fiction. You can also apply it to realistic scenarios if you're looking for creative problem solving with the practical day-to-day. All right, pick a terrible idea. For those of you who can't see the text in the back, it says, this is my bad idea machine. Let me show you it. It's a cat in the dryer. And so if you're stuck with an idea, this is really useful, especially for writers. Take the approach of what's the most useless idea I can imagine. Make a list of these worst ideas. And then maybe you can work with one of them. You stretch your creativity, you look at the best features of these terrible ideas, and sometimes that gives you the jolt you need to transfer over to your excellent ideas. Role playing, I don't really have an application for this in the art world as much, but for writing, a lot of my authored friends, when they're stuck with a plot point or they're trying to be creative, they'll get together an RPG group and say, okay, instead of D&D, we're playing my story. I'll be the GM. They make the scenario, give them the characters, and then they let the players figure out how do you get out of this pickle, or what do you do in this situation. It's really quite fun. And my friend had the most ridiculous things that happened because my husband was playing this prize fighter in a bar, and he kept rolling critical fails. What? And it was so funny that she kept this idea and put it in her book. It was unbelievable, but it was so ridiculous because the characters had all built it up. They were trying to make money, so it was this big betting pool thing, and it really changed the plot of her story. But it was a really fun way of that happening. So role play can really get you through a stuck spot in your plot. I wanted to close with this quote from Vonnegut because it is so true and so powerful. To practice any art, no matter how well or badly, is a way to make your soul grow. So do it. Our souls crave creation. And when we create, that's a beautiful thing for our mind and for our soul. It doesn't matter how well you do it, just do it. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with me. I appreciate you. Have a good day here at LTUE.